There are nights when the silence feels louder than any crowd. Nights when you lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations that never turned into relationships, almost love stories that collapsed before they began, and prayers that seem to echo back unanswered. You wonder why everyone else appears to be finding their person while you're still standing alone at the altar of hope. You question if something is wrong with you, if you missed your chance, if God forgot your name when handing out love stories. But what if this season isn't a punishment? What if it's protection? What if the reason God is keeping you single in 2026 is not what you think at all? This message is for the one who smiles in public but wrestles with doubt in private. For the one who has watched friends get engaged, married, start families, while you scroll past their happiness with a heart that aches. It's for the one who has done the self-work, read the books, prayed the prayers, healed the wounds, and still finds themselves alone. You thought by now you'd have someone to call yours. By now you imagined shared mornings, shared struggles, shared dreams. Instead, you're sharing your bed with unanswered questions. But maybe this season isn't about loneliness. Maybe it's about alignment. This message is for the one who smiles in public but wrestles with doubt in private. For the one who has watched friends get engaged, married, start families, while you scroll past their happiness with a heart that aches. It's for the one who has done the self-work, read the books, prayed the prayers, healed the wounds, and still finds themselves alone. You thought by now you'd have someone to call yours. By now you imagined shared mornings, shared struggles, shared dreams. Instead, you're sharing your bed with unanswered questions. But maybe this season isn't about loneliness. Maybe it's about alignment. We often think singleness is a waiting room, a temporary hallway before the real life begins. But what if this is the real life? What if this is not a delay, but a design? You see, sometimes God keeps you single not because you're unworthy of love, but because you're being prepared for a love that requires a stronger version of you. And preparation doesn't always feel romantic. Sometimes it feels like isolation. Sometimes it feels like doors closing. Sometimes it feels like being misunderstood. Think about the relationships that almost happened, the ones where everything seemed perfect on the surface. The chemistry was there, the conversations flowed, the future looked possible, and yet something didn't sit right. Maybe there were subtle red flags you tried to ignore. Maybe their vision didn't quite align with yours. Maybe you felt yourself shrinking to be chosen. And when it ended, you were devastated. You asked God why He would let something so promising fall apart. But what if it fell apart because it would have broken you later? There are connections that feel good but aren't God. There are people who can love you partially but not purposefully. And sometimes God will remove someone from your life, not because they're bad, but because they're not built for where you're going. You see rejection as loss, but heaven sees it as redirection. You see delay, but God sees development. In 2026, you're not the same person you were 2 years ago. You've grown. You've healed. You've learned boundaries you didn't know you needed. You've discovered strength in your solitude. And that growth didn't happen in a relationship. It happened in quiet moments, in tears no one saw, in prayers whispered at 2 a.m. It happened when you chose to stay instead of running into the arms of the next distraction. It happened when you said no to settling. And maybe that's the point. Maybe God is keeping you single because you finally stopped settling. You stopped entertaining potential that required you to compromise your standards. You stopped chasing people who were unclear about you. You stopped confusing attention for intention. That kind of growth changes your dating pool. It narrows your options. It makes you feel like there's no one left. But what it's actually doing is filtering out what can't carry your calling.
There's a version of you that once begged for crumbs, a version that tolerated inconsistency, a version that believed almost was enough. But you're not that person anymore, and the love meant for you requires this healed version, not the desperate one, not the insecure one, not the one who would accept less just to avoid being alone. God is not preparing someone for the old you. He's preparing someone for who you are becoming. And here's the part no one talks about. Sometimes God keeps you single because your purpose is in a building phase. Relationships require time, energy, emotional investment. And if He added that to your plate right now, it might distract you from the foundation you're supposed to be laying. You're building discipline. You're building vision. You're building faith. You're building self-respect. And those bricks are heavy. Adding romance into the mix too soon could crack the structure. Imagine meeting your future spouse before you fully understood your worth, before you confronted your trauma, before you established your direction. You might sabotage it. You might cling too tightly. You might lose yourself in them. God doesn't just care about you getting married. He cares about you staying whole. Singleness is not an empty space. It's a sacred space. It's where you learn to sit with yourself without needing validation. It's where you confront your fears of abandonment. It's where you realize that your identity is not attached to someone choosing you. It's where you discover that you are already chosen.
And maybe, just maybe, God is keeping you single because He's trying to break your addiction to validation. Because if your happiness depends on someone texting you good morning, then your peace is too fragile. If your worth depends on someone claiming you publicly, then your foundation is too shaky. This season is teaching you stability. It's teaching you to wake up fulfilled without checking your phone. It's teaching you to build a life so full that a partner becomes an addition, not a completion. There's also protection you can't see. Conversations happening behind closed doors that you'll never hear. Intentions you'll never uncover. Plans that would have derailed you completely. Sometimes the person you're crying over is the very one God saved you from. And years from now, you'll look back and thank Him for the unanswered prayer.
But here's the deeper truth. God may be keeping you single because He's writing a story bigger than your timeline. We live in a world obsessed with speed, fast love, fast engagement, fast everything. But meaningful things take time. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Trees grow roots before they grow branches. And you are growing roots right now. Roots of patience, roots of discernment, roots of unshakable faith. You feel behind because you're comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 10, but you don't see the full story. You don't see their private struggles. You don't see what they sacrificed. You only see the highlight reel. Meanwhile, your story is being written in depth, not haste. There will be a moment when it all makes sense. A moment when you meet someone whose presence doesn't feel chaotic, but calm. Someone who aligns, not just attracts. Someone who sees your strength and doesn't try to compete with it. And in that moment, you'll realize why the others had to fall away. You'll understand why the waiting was necessary. You'll see how every no was guiding you to the right yes. But until that moment comes, you have a choice. You can see this season as lack, or you can see it as luxury. Luxury to know yourself deeply, luxury to pursue your dreams without compromise, luxury to travel, build, heal, grow, luxury to become the person you've always wanted to be. This is the turning point. The realization that singleness is not a curse to escape, but a chapter to embrace. The realization that God is not withholding love from you. He's refining you for it. He's aligning circumstances. He's working behind the scenes in ways you cannot imagine.
What if the love story you're praying for requires the version of you that only this season can produce? What if the partner meant for you needs the healed, confident, purpose-driven you that's emerging right now? What if God is not late, but intentional? Stop measuring your life by relationship status. Start measuring it by growth, by peace, by purpose, by how deeply you know yourself. Because when love does arrive, you won't meet it from a place of lack. You'll meet it from abundance. And here's the final truth. God is not keeping you single to punish you. He's keeping you single to position you, to strengthen you, to protect you, to prepare you. The loneliness you feel is not permanent. The waiting is not wasted. The silence is not abandonment. One day, you'll look back at 2026 and realize it was the year you became unrecognizable, the year you stopped begging for love and started embodying it, the year you built a life so aligned that the right person had no choice but to meet you there. So tonight, instead of asking, "Why am I still single?" ask, "Who am I becoming in this season?" Because the answer to that question will change everything. Trust the timing, embrace the growth, honor the solitude, and remember this: when God keeps you single, it's never because you're not enough. It's because He's making sure that when love finds you, it won't break you, it will match you. And that kind of love is always worth the wait.